Hi, everybody. Having a good day? Great sessions, right? Well, we're glad that you stayed here for us. This is going to be a really exciting topic. With me, I have Sarah Davis, I have Kimberly Conrad, and Burak Cakmak. I want them all to introduce yourselves. Burak, you want to start?
Sure, I can. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm currently the Dean of Fashion at Parsons School of Design, but my background has been in retail for a long time. Just a brief journey. It started with Gap in San Francisco for quite a few years, where I was part of the sustainability team, and then ended up going to, at that time, Gucci Group, which is now part of Kering, to build their sustainability function across their 8 luxury brands. And from there, I took over the role at Swarovski to build their sustainability function as well, and learned a lot about also the jewelry sector. And from there, I became the Dean of Fashion, the current role that I'm in.
He's a great dean of fashion. I work for him. I teach there. So I can attest to how wonderful he is at everything. So, thank you. How about you, Sarah?
Yeah, so I started, Fashionphile was my eBay ID in 1999, so before some of you were alive. Back when I was taking my pictures on 35mm film and developing them at CVS onto a floppy disk, so my kids don't even know what that looks like, but there was no PayPal, no online payment systems. You wait for a check to come and you clear it. So very, very long start to our startup. But I did bring some pictures. I don't know if that's going to work.
Can we show some pictures?
Technology sometimes doesn't click. Anyway. Oh, whoa, wow. Yeah, so that's us now. We have a 30,000 square foot warehouse in North San Diego County in Carlsbad, California. We have about 20,000 ultra luxury accessories on our website. Everything is used, and we stick to the ultra luxury, so Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Gucci, Prada, brands like that, 51 brands, and only pre-owned. We were bootstrapped for 20 years, and then Neiman Marcus invested in our company in April, so it's been really huge for us. And I think, wow. That's a picture of our cage, part of some of our inventory.
Wow.
And authentication is key to what we do. Every single brand that we accept requires expert authentication. Tiffany, Bulgari, Cartier, those jewelry brands, but also Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Hermes. It's something that people have said is an art and a science, but we reject that. We use really amazing technology. We use synthetic diamond testers and metal alloy detectors and X-ray machines and all types of cool visual recognition types of cool technology in what we do. So it's very exciting.
Thanks. How about you, Kimberly?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Kimberly Conrad. I am the founder of Filoro Cashmere, which is a direct-to-consumer cashmere brand that launched in August of 2018, so still fairly new. My background is actually also in high-end European luxury fashion. In 2017, I left that world and started working with my dad, actually, who has been in the cashmere industry for forever. And he has been doing private label development for a lot of the major US department stores. We're completely vertically integrated. So I started working with him and immediately saw kind of how traditional the industry was at the time, and launched Filoro as a separate entity, but using that vertical integration of our manufacturing process to be able to offer consumers fun fashion cashmere at an accessible price and direct to consumer.
Thank you. So, I'm going to start with you, Burak, because you have a lot of experience. I'm going to ask you the academic questions. So, what is conscious luxury? How is it different from luxury 30 years ago, 40 years ago? And what role is technology and design to the title of our conversation? What has technology and design played in what luxury is today?
I mean, what's interesting is why do we feel like we have to put conscious in front of luxury? That's what we need to question, because if you go 30, 40 years ago, probably the assumption was luxury is conscious. The way it was made, how it was distributed, the quantities that were out there, how people were using it. And the primary way fashion industry grew their businesses has been linked to adopting fast fashion business models. And unfortunately, these models have influenced everybody across the whole spectrum in the fashion industry, including quite a few of the luxury industry players. So we are now doing, instead of 2 or 4 collections, we are seeing 12 collections, monthly drops in the stores, even at the fashion level, in fashion stores for luxury. But also, we are seeing an incredible amount of product produced so that there is a much more concentration of products that are available to the consumers. As a result, we see a lot of leftover products that are complicated to dispose of. We hear a lot of stories around incineration and several methods that brands have to resort to. So in a world that shifted to this level, of course, there's a reason to look at luxury in a new way, and more brands that are doing it in a genuine way are trying to bring that word conscious into the conversation to differentiate from what luxury has become. And that consciousness is really going back to the roots of what luxury always meant. It's products that are desirable, that are really high quality, and products that we want to keep for a long time. And part of the journey was always around the availability and scarcity. So that's a dilemma in a world of democratization. So when we are seeing an increase in the amount of middle-income population all over the world, is it the place of the brands to say that there should be very few products available? Is it their responsibility to supply to the consumer as many products as they need? Or should they be drawing a line saying that we think the right amount is this because it has an impact on the resources that we are using, and we're creating strain on not only natural resources, but also the whole value chain itself. And we're going to respect that and limit our amount of production and the way we sell.
Wow. So what are brands doing?
I mean, everybody's approaching it from a different angle, but what is key is to recognize that luxury is not anymore about material. And it's interesting. I mean, I would love to have that conversation here because we're talking to a brand focused on cashmere, really building on that conscious luxury the way we are talking about it. But at the same time, many brands are looking at luxury from a design perspective. So if you go to any of the brands out there that are promoted as luxury, you'll be able to see that they're using materials that are typical to fast fashion. So it is possible to buy a polyester suit for $2,000. Yeah. And right. So should that be considered luxury? So these are the questions we need to ask.
Well, you know, Sarah, Burak said that luxury brands have adopted fast fashion. They're manufacturing a lot. And that's impacted retail, right? I mean, that's provided you with a business opportunity. Talk to that.
Yeah, it has. I mean, you can buy a polyester suit, or you can buy a Chanel denim $7,000 boy bag. And so, yeah, they're using, luxury brands are using all types of different materials. But it is just, to me, like the idea of conscious luxury just says you're being thoughtful about what you're buying. You're being thoughtful about that purchase, and it means different things for different people. I know just this last week, people were giving Nikki Hilton a hard time because she was saying that she was, making a conscious choice in wearing vintage Chanel, and she doesn't need to buy a vintage bag or carry a vintage bag, and so why? And so I think it's that thoughtfulness is people who can afford to buy whatever they want whenever they want. It's giving them the chance who would never have worn something that's pre-owned before. It just was not cool, that now they're being thoughtful and saying, but it's kind of the right thing to do, to be participating in that. And then also the younger consumer, we found that maybe looked at luxury as saying it's kind of like corporate, and they were looking more at the conscientious way to shop is shop local, independent, kind of designers, things like that. But they're saying there's, giving younger people permission to do something that maybe they thought wasn't cool for another reason, that it wasn't a local, it was more a corporate brand or whatever. And so they are saying, well, but this is a way, maybe I'm not going to buy, 7 different local cheaper bags that then when I can only carry for X period of time because they're not as well made or whatever, but I can carry something that then you can carry and then you can sell and then you can carry and we can all share. And so I think it's giving different people a chance to be thoughtful about their purchasing habits for different reasons.
It seems to me that consumers have changed the way they can purchase with the advent of resale, because you see what something is valued at in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, depending on how heavily you use it. And so that can make you think, oh, maybe a $1,000 handbag is a lot of money, but if I can get $700 for it in 3 months, maybe it's worth the $300 and I'm gonna get the joy out of it, and then I'll resell it and then I'll buy another.
Yeah,
right? I mean, people...
We've done that forever with cars. You could think,
Exactly.
what car am I gonna buy? Because what's the resale value of the car?
Right.
And some of you out here are like me and I'm not just like selling stuff because I've created this company. I love the secondary market. I still love thrift stores. I still love consignment shops.
Right.
I'd say 95% of what I carry that's not consumable is pre-owned. I love it. And I love that idea about it. I love the fact that I buy it and then I just sell it for basically what I bought it for. It's actually a less expensive way to do it, and I'm sharing it with somebody else. So I really get behind that. But lots of us have been doing that for years. But what's happening now, this isn't like resale, which is kind of, like a hot thing right now, is not something new. This isn't like, oh, flash sales, a new way to sell something that may or may not be cool next year. Our grandparents did resale. We have just taken something that's been done for hundreds of years, and we've now added scale and technology, technology necessary to create the scale, to something we've been doing for forever. And our grandparents would look at a bag and they would call that Chanel flap an heirloom piece, but we look at now and say it's an investment piece. I want to sell grandma's Chanel flap and get the bag I want. No, not necessarily, but sometimes there might be something you keep for sentimental values, but we can now, change it up if we want.
Well, so Kimberly, you started your business to be sustainable. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So I think, separately from our wholesale business, the idea behind Filoro was always to be completely direct to consumer and understand and learn from our consumer via technology, via Instagram, via looking at their shopping habits online and what pages they're looking at and what they're cross-shopping and everything, and using that technology to be able to understand how to produce. So for us, because we're completely vertically integrated, we have the advantage of being able to produce on a smaller scale. So anytime we're starting a new collection, we never produce hundreds of thousands of units of something, because I don't want to create inventory that's going to sit there and never sell. Obviously from a business perspective, but also from a sustainability perspective, I think so much of sustainability has to do, of course, with what you're doing, but also with what you're not doing. So not creating waste and not creating products just for the sake of growing your business so quickly. So really growth in a sustainable way, I think, is important. So for us, inventory management is a huge aspect of what we look at in terms of sustainability. And of course, if there is the product that really takes off, we'll go ahead and restock that product, and we have the advantage of being able to react very quickly to that. But I think, in the conversation about sustainability, cashmere, of course, is a luxury product, but being able to humanize it a little bit and not sell it for $2,000, but have that great exact same quality direct to the consumer, I think is so important.
So this question is really for both you and Burak. Do you think that with scale it becomes hard to be sustainable? As you grow?
I think it's about, I'm sure you'll have an interesting perspective, but I think it's about scaling smartly and scaling with understanding how that impact is, impacting the environment, the society, everything. Because when you look at the production chain from beginning to end, which is how we manufacture, literally from the raw material to how it's ending up at your door, looking at all those little places of where you're impacting, and of course nothing's perfect, but where you can make a small impact that actually has a much greater impact in the larger scale.
I guess this is tied to some of the innovation we are seeing happening as well. Everything from new models in retail, such as resale, rental, to also looking at a new value chain, new materials going into that cycle, pushing for circular economy. It's happening at mass market, and it can easily happen at luxury level as well. But what matters is also looking at what's happening in society, and keeping luxury relevant is the big challenge that I see. Because with everything from issues of diversity, Me Too movements, and all the different cultural influences that we are seeing taking priority to our daily shopping habits, I think the brands are under so much pressure to figure out how do they keep their relevance with everything they do, from the way they produce, how do they market, what they sell, even the type of product that's being put out there. And so within that, I think there's a place to play with scale. But the reality is, no matter what an individual brand does, I still suspect there will be expectation to produce more globally in terms of total volume, because there's an increase in number of middle-income households. And everybody deserves or have the right to buy what they want. And nobody is in a place to tell them what to do. So I think each individual brand has to look at doing it in the right way. And then we hope that there's a big ecosystem of brands that are responsibly approaching this, offering different solutions to a variety of customers.
So that kind of leads me to the next question for you, which is, like, who do you think the luxury consumer is today? Talk about the luxury Gen Z and the young millennials. And
what they perceive as luxury. Of course, the big brands have relevance, because the amount of marketing money that's put into really raising awareness is absolutely working. But that price tag is increasing every day. I'm sure you face those challenges in social media as well, and how difficult it became to even use some of the social channels to be able to raise awareness of the brands. But beyond that, I think the appetite for especially Generation Z is much more about looking at the comfort and things they like wearing. It's not always about the brand. And the fact that even with streetwear, we have seen a huge trend, what you were talking about, that because it's a coveted item, there's limited amount that's produced, if it's available for a very short time period, and they know that they can resell it, it increased the prices to the same prices or sometimes more than many luxury products. So the idea of luxury is much more about who has it, how many is out there, and is there going to be demand after I purchase it, rather than what goes into it.
So it's like luxury has been asked to be inclusive, and yet streetwear is saying, I'm going to take the business model of what luxury used to be and be very exclusive, and that is creating an aftermarket where their things are more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, things went upside down in the past decade. Luxury became a bit more mass market, and streetwear is becoming a bit more luxury. But I already started seeing a lot of conversation around sustainability within the streetwear sector as well. So I think there's a recognition that if they don't do it right, there will be a lot of attention. And this is something demanded by Generation Z. So, you know, if one of the core values definitely will be how it's produced and where is it coming from for the buyers, even if it's streetwear or luxury.
Right. Well, so do you see, Sarah, your clientele influenced by sustainability in their purchases?
Yeah, just like I was saying, you know, it gives permission. I think that's the thing we've seen more than anything. But just the conversation even, I think, is helpful in, you know, for people just to think that this is something that maybe you'd make a decision to buy less overall, but you're making a few really good quality choices that maybe you either wear for 10 years and then sell, or you can turn around more quickly depending on your, you know, what your taste is. But we've seen, because we've been doing this so long, kind of what you're talking about, where the luxury consumer is just getting younger and younger. I mean, you know, we've been doing this for 20 years, but my 16-year-old son wants Gucci sneakers and an Hermes H belt because that's what the rappers in his basketball guys are all wearing or whatever. He doesn't have any of them. Like, get a job and buy your own H belt. I'm not going there. Doesn't own anything, but he's like obsessed and on all the Instagrams because all of his, you know, people that he looks up to in the sports community and music are all doing that. And so younger and younger people are looking towards that, and maybe they can't afford to go to Hermes and buy an H belt, but they could go and get something that he's been wearing for a couple years and he's tired of it, and we buy it from him. They can come to us.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Well, talk to me about sustainability in the manufacturing process, because that's something that I'm not, I think the audience would like to know about that.
Absolutely. So there's so many, I mean, really, from beginning to end of making one garment, there are so many places where you can impact, you know, the amount of wastage and any area to improve the sustainability. So something that we've been looking at, for example, in our factories is how much water are we using and how much wastage, and investing in new treatment plants that will actually help. While they're a big investment now, they'll help, you know, the amount of water that we're wasting through the production facility. So things like that across the board. Something that we did this year too, which was really fun and interesting to launch, is a capsule collection of recycled cashmere. And it's funny, we actually had a pop-up here in New York, and you know, people would feel it and say, "Oh, what's that?" And it's recycled cashmere, and they're like, "What? How do you recycle cashmere?" But actually, it's a really interesting concept of taking yarn that, when they're previously knitting a sweater, there is yarn that's left over considered wastage, as opposed to discarding that wastage, re-knitting that into a new sweater with other virgin cashmere and some merino wool, or there's different ways to do it. But it really takes something that previously had no value and creates value out of it. So I think any sort of technological impacts like that, and being able to change how are we looking at every aspect of manufacturing, and what can we do to test or learn and see how we can make a better impact.
Iterative, right?
I just want to add to that too. It's something that the luxury brands also see, that they're really kind of getting exposed about, is what are they doing damaging and destroying product that isn't selling, returns and things like that. I know Burberry came out, was it last year, and it was exposed they destroyed like $36 billion of the product.
Right.
And so, you know, what's happening is, you know, everybody's becoming more thoughtful. These brands are now, we've been doing this for so long, and there's been a really kind of like adversarial relationship. They don't know what to do about resale. How do you, and we are talking to all of the brands now. They are all saying, how do we, you know, interact with this resale thing, and what do we do about it? There's no luxury car maker out there who doesn't have their own certified pre-owned. You want to use Mercedes, you get it from Mercedes.
Right.
And so I think that there's going to be, in very few years, they're going to start piling on and all be participating one way or the other, but they're dealing with waste that they are currently destroying at the end of the season, returns and things, overage to keep supply down and demand up. That doesn't necessarily happen naturally. So
Right. It's managed. It's artificial.
It's managed.
I mean, maybe I want to highlight also some of the changes in consumer behavior, especially with the fact that young generations more looking at showcasing who they are more through the digital channels rather than in person. It has a huge impact, and I'm curious, does that even help a business like yours? Because in some ways, they want to be seen with certain products, and they're seeking that, but it's intended for digital use.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, you know, you said sometimes it doesn't matter about the brand, but honestly, for lots of people, it matters only about the brand. I mean, it's really the whole logomania thing, and really like a bag with no brand on it that's not just like a super hot or an iconic brand. Potentially, if there's not labeling on there, the more expensive the Birkin, there's hardly any labeling on it. It's a very expensive, you know, classic bag. But when you're looking at a brand that's not a style, that's real common, but it can be in mint condition, but it's got no branding and not recognizable, it just doesn't sell as well. So for a lot of people, it is about the brand.
So
and
what are the
good on the brands for making it, you know, all about them. Yeah.
Right. So what are the top brands now that have the best?
I mean, they're what you would expect, you know. And so a lot of people are like, "Well, what's hot right now?" And honestly, we still sell more Louis Vuitton Speedies, the classic Speedy, than any other bag today. And the one that you bought in 1986 for $240, we could take that same bag and sell it today for $800. You could make money on that bag.
So when I worked on Wall Street, I used to say, do you buy the brand or do you buy the stock? And now people are coming back to me and saying, well, you know, if I had bought the bag, its vintage value has really, it's superior to its value now. But the stocks have done really well, too. And that's all the time we have. So thanks.
Thank you.